Now, to understand today's chaos, we have to go back to a secret meeting in 1946 that predicted the exact crisis we face now with Greenland. Because believe it or not, this isn't the first time the United States has tried to buy Greenland. The United States Secretary of State, James Burns, walked into a private meeting with the Danish Foreign Minister. There were no cameras, no reporters. This wasn't even public knowledge until the 1990s. It was kept a secret. Burns slid a secret memorandum across the table declaring that US military control of Greenland was indispensable to American safety. And then he made him an offer he thought he wouldn't refuse. $100 million in gold bullion. To a Denmark devastated by the war which hadn't long ended, this was indeed an astronomical fortune. But Denmark said no. It does beg the question, why exactly was the United States so hell-bent on getting their hands on a desolate, remote, ice-covered island? Why? Because the United States knew something the rest of the world did not. In 1946, it wasn't about the people, it wasn't about shipping routes, it wasn't about oil reserves or gas, it was about the Cryolite mine. In 1946, that Cryolite mine in South Greenland was the only active source of cryolite on Earth. What's cryolite, I hear you ask? Cryolite is an absolutely essential mineral involved in the smelting of aluminium. And without aluminium, you can't build fighter planes, Mustangs, all sorts of other appliances and things used on a daily basis by the American people. The United States knew whoever controlled that mine controlled the future of manufacturing. That is why the US Coast Guard stationed a cutter in the fjord. With deck guns pointed at the entrance. They weren't protecting the scenery, they weren't protecting the people, they were protecting the supply chain. Fast forward to today, the technology may have changed, but the geography hasn't. Today, they're using NATO to secure the oil, gas, and rare earth metals involved in the production of electric vehicles, wind turbines, electronic appliances, and to secure shipping lanes of the future. The target's not cryolite anymore. It's the 31 billion barrels estimated to be underneath Greenland of oil and gas. It's the minerals that are essential in manufacturing high-power magnets. Western governments have all committed legally to banning petrol and diesel engines in the not-too-distant future, forcing everybody into electric vehicles, which all need high-powered magnets to operate. They are passing the laws, but they're yet to secure the supply chain. Talking of electric vehicles, this does connect directly to the last video I uploaded concerning the new UK driving laws coming soon. Right now, China controls 90% of the rare earth elements required to manufacture those EV motors. If the US doesn't acquire Greenland's resources, by 2035, the entire green revolution and your ability to drive an electric car will become purely dependent on Beijing. Now, Trump the businessman, he knows this. He isn't looking at Greenland purely as a military base. He sees it as a distressed asset. With the world's largest untapped deposit of minerals the Western world needs to save the automobile industry. But here is where the Americans hit a wall. After Denmark refused the gold in 1946, the US had to settle for a compromise. Thus was formed the 1951 Defense of Greenland Agreement. This legislation gave the United States of America the right to build a massive fuel airbase. But in exchange, Greenland got to retain its sovereignty. By signing that document, the United States of America legally recognized that Greenland did not belong to them, and unless that document is amended, it never will. So just why was President Trump so happy when he came out of that meeting with NATO? Is it because he pivoted to this new Davos framework? He's got some of the best advisors in the world, so perhaps he realized the United States can't buy Greenland, so they're going to use a Trojan Horse instead. By accepting this as a NATO mission to protect the Arctic, the United States gets the military footprint of an occupation with the diplomatic reasoning of an alliance, as opposed to an invasion. And once the US military is positioned, guarding the land and the sea, China, Russia, and any other countries with organizations that would look to mine in Greenland will be locked out for sure. But make no mistake, this framework is indeed fragile. In truth, NATO doesn't have the authority to give up Greenland's resources. If the NATO deal collapses, because the United States of America can't agree on resources and mining details with the Prime Minister, and then the US tries to seize the mines by force, the economic and political consequences will be catastrophic. Let's face it, the White House has already threatened 10% tariffs, rise to 25% if their terms weren't agreed to. If the framework fails, those tariffs will likely return. But Europe does have its own weapon. Brussels is prepared to deploy the anti-coercion instrument. This will allow the EU to automatically hit back, not just with tariffs, but by freezing United States tech giants out of commercial agreements and government contracts. So what about forced seizure, I hear you thinking? In truth, if the United States of America tried to force seizure from within, with the troops they could have deployed, they would likely take Greenland in 72 hours, quite successfully. However, they could well trigger United Nations Resolution 3314 by performing an act of aggression. They would indeed gain a frozen island with lots of resources, but they would lose their bases and embassies in the UK and most of Europe, thus losing their staging grounds against Russia, China and the Middle East. It would indeed be a tainted victory that would guarantee a massive long-term strategic failure. So we have a deadlock. The US wants the resources, Greenland wants its sovereignty. As an observer looking in, I believe there is only one solution that respects the rights of the Greenlandic people while solving the resource war. A new multilateral treaty, let's call it, for the sake of this video, the Greenland Trade and Military Accords. It'd have to rest on 3 pillars, the first being the Critical Mining Consortium. The US, the UK and the EU all sign a binding treaty agreement guaranteeing their tech sectors first rights of refusal on Greenland's exports of rare earth elements and oil and gas. This would indeed secure the supply chain without having to seize the land. And crucially, if they all agree to pay fair market value for the products they purchase, a massive injection of money on that type of scale would significantly improve the Greenlandic economy. Number 2, the trilateral funding. A joint investment backed by the UK, the USA and the European Union. This would provide the capital to extract the resources, while placing a ban on hostile state investment in critical infrastructure. And then Pillar 3, which may well be already underway, joint military protection. They establish a permanent NATO headquarters in Greenland. Not just US flags, but British, European, Greenlandic and Danish flags all flying together, side by side. This solution fundamentally does give the United States what they want, security in the Arctic and the resources underneath the ice, but it does so without the economic ruin of a trade war, or the moral stain and deaths of an invasion or forced seizure. So, is it time for the West to stop fighting over Greenland and to start actually working with Greenland? Is it possible to balance Western anxiety with Greenlandic justice? Tell me what you think and your views in the comments below. Does the USA purely care about protecting the Greenlandic people and Greenland itself? Or are they fundamentally after the resources that Greenland can provide and the shipping lanes for the future? So for more analysis on the intersection of law and politics on a domestic and global scale, make sure to hit that subscribe button. So stay safe, stay legal, and most importantly, stay informed. Till next time, thanks for watching.